Jesus, nobody in the sky. Moonshine Jesus, baby, alright. Moonshine Jesus, a surprising delight. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show, brought to you by ProgressiveChristianity.org. I'm Caleb, and I'm here with my good buddy Mark. How you doing today, Mark?
Doing great, Caleb. I'm excited. I'm excited about talking about this movie.
I bet you are. Today we are talking about the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. But before we get to that, make sure that you follow us on social media. We're live streaming on Facebook. If you get your podcast later, make sure you check it out wherever your podcasts. Ask us questions throughout. We can see those. And as always, this is not a spoiler-free zone. So if you haven't seen Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, you're going to learn a lot about the movie as you listen to it here. Okay, but here's what we always do. We always start out by pouring a drink that is themed with whatever it is that we are watching. And I cannot wait to hear what you are drinking today, Mark. What are you drinking?
I decided to go since there's this everything bagel, which is part of it.
I knew it. I knew you were gonna. I told my wife. I said he's gonna get the bagel. He's gonna do something with the bagel. Okay.
Well, I wanted to go with something dark since it's a dark bagel, so I started with a Black Manhattan, which is whiskey, Amaro, bitters, orange bitters, and then I added a little maraschino liquor. Then I added some Chinese black tea to it, and then I rimmed the whole thing out with everything seasoning and a little everything bagel and some cream cheese. Of course you did. And some cream cheese, because we know that in Alpha universe, all the cattle have died and we can't get dairy. So I needed to make sure that. And just one little last addition to my beautiful cup. Googly eyes. Couldn't resist.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course not.
So what'd you go with, man? This was a hard one to come up with a drink for.
Okay, so I also latched onto the googly
well
eyes.
Done.
And so I have got googly eyes here at the top of my drink, and I've got googly eyes all over my drink. So this is a googly-eyed bloody martini. It has maraschino cherry juice, cranberry juice, vodka, and lemon juice. And
nice. I like it. It sounds delicious. Cheers, sir.
Cheers.
Show.
How's yours?
Not
Do you
bad.
like it?
It's delicious. It really is good.
It's delicious. It's wonderful. So everybody pour yourself a drink and get ready to dive in as we geek out to everything, everywhere, all at once.
Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Welcome back to the. I couldn't resist. He wasn't expecting this. I came back with my googly eye third eye. I had to go there. I could not help it. If you're watching the video, you can see it clearly. So listen, today we are talking about Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. This is it's a kung fu sci-fi multi-universe action adventure absurdity melancholy comedy drama.
Wow, that is a lot of stuff. That's like everything, everywhere, all at once.
It is. It's Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. And in it, this is even better. Laundromat owner Evelyn is trying to complete her tax audit, throw a Chinese New Year's party to impress her father, navigate a possible divorce from her overly optimistic husband, and avoid alienating her daughter Joy. And she's also the last hope of the multiverse who must end up fighting an evil entity threatening to destroy, well, pretty much everything, right?
Oh, just that. Yeah, just that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's great because there's just not much going on in this show.
nothing at all.
To pay attention to this eye, and the third eye here is distracting me. I
I'm
think
loving
maybe we
it.
need to-
I'm loving it, Mark. Yeah.
I think maybe it needs to come off. So this was one of those movies that I think there's no middle ground on this movie. And at least that was my take on it. For me, it was immediately, almost before it finished, I knew this is probably going to be one of my all-time favorite movies. And I think honestly it is. I've watched it a second time and I loved it every bit, maybe a little bit more the second time. But at the same time, I'm watching with my wife, who about 3/4 in was like, you know what, I got some stuff I need to go do.
I'm kind of done with this. Yeah.
So it is not. I think it's not a middle ground movie. I mean, what was your take?
I'm in the middle ground.
Okay,
So-
prove me
so
wrong.
it's-
You're supposed to make me look stupid in the last segment, not the first segment.
Yeah, how long? You know, how quickly have you had to eat your words before, Mark? I love it.
Right.
Right. So, well, we were in a meeting this morning, and Mark's like, "I love this movie," and someone else in the meeting was like, "I hated this movie," and I was like, I have no idea how I feel about this movie. I was sitting there watching it, and I was like, I don't know whether I love that movie
Right.
or I hated that movie or what. There was I think part of it is that there was so much going on, and maybe I
There
need to
absolutely
like
is.
watch it another time.
And I think that everything going on is sort of a meta storytelling technique that the Daniels are using. The directors direct together, and they're both named Daniel, and they call themselves Daniels, and they use it as a single name for the both of them. So it's a Daniel production, Daniels production. But I think that was on purpose. So it is a crazy movie. As you heard from the introduction, there's so many genres included here, from kung fu to there's some great allusions to some old romantic 50s kind of feel. I mean, there's so many different pieces to it. And it is an action-packed. Matter of fact, one of my all-time favorite fight scenes is in this. The backpack fight scene, the fanny pack
With the
scene.
fanny pack? Yeah.
Oh, man. It was brilliant. And it was done by Ke-Huy Quan, who we've seen in Goonies. We've seen him in one of the Indiana Jones movies, and we hadn't seen him for a while. He's been actually off doing fight coordination and stuff for films, and it all shows up in that first fight scene with him and his fanny pack. It is brilliantly choreographed. I mean, didn't you think it was just so much fun?
Okay. So I mean, anytime you see somebody fighting with a fanny pack, that is gonna be loads of fun. There's no way to fight with a fanny pack without that being very interesting. And so I agree that there were some really interesting fight scenes, and the way they went about Michelle Yeoh's character learning how to fight was kind of fun as she was accessing the multiverse. And as we talked about a little bit last week as we were introducing this, you know, the whole idea of multiverses is very hot right now. You know, Marvel is leaning into the multiverse, and DC is leaning into the multiverse. And so I think it was also kind of a meta commentary on how that is something that's going on right now. So I appreciated that commentary as well. And I think I like the overall point of the movie, which seems to be about family. Is that what you think the point of it is, Mark?
I mean, I think it sort of is. It's actually like that's a part of the element, and a very important part of the element. So we should back up and just say, kind of one of the things that goes on throughout the movie is we discover that there's this multi-universe, and as I hinted at, Evelyn, the lead character's the lead character of the show, finds out that there's this multi-universe and ends up what they call verse jumping. And in order to do it, they have to be given assigned a path. And the more different from who you are as a person that you are in that other universe, the more unusual your path is. And your path can be something like making paper cuts in between each of your fingers, which
That's an
absolutely drove
important point.
me crazy.
Couldn't you just feel it?
Oh my
paper
God, that
ah,
was it was
ah.
horrible. But for everything, the further away from who you really were, the more unusual, farther outside of anything that you would be comfortable, you had to go with. So that was one thing that ran through the whole thing, is that in order to access something new, something interesting, something different, some new place in life, you've got to push yourself to places you wouldn't normally go. They don't have to be ridiculous, but because the whole show is mostly a metaphor, except for what I'm going to call the IRS universe, the universe that we start in, where they have to go to the IRS to get audited.
IRS,
the IRS universe, it's pretty normal, and everything else just feels like this giant metaphor.
Well, let me ask you this, Mark. Did you ever think so? You told me that this was one of your new favorite movies, right? Did you ever think that one of your favorite movies would take place primarily in an IRS office? I looked up, like half of the movie is in the IRS office.
Almost all of it. It feels like, doesn't it? I mean, it's crazy. I mean, because even when they're in some of the other multiverses, they're in the IRS verse. Universe.
It's just they're like subconscious. They're being, their soul is traveling. I don't know.
It's absolutely crazy. But okay, there's you can already tell by how we're kind of starting to sound schizophrenic here that there's so much going on here. And I want to just talk about this maybe the other main character, which is Evelyn's daughter Joy. And, they have this mother-daughter struggle. Joy is late teens, early 20s, has a girlfriend. Mom's not accepting the girlfriend kind of thing. And so they've got this tension and all of it. And in the multiverse, though, mom has gone steps further to alienate daughter and has ultimately pushed the daughter to the point that her brain has splintered and cracked off so much. They call it's like a clay jar with multi cracks in it. That it'll drive you crazy, and you can experience. And she starts to experience all the universes all at once. That's everything all the time, right?
Yep. She becomes Juju Chewbacca.
I love it.
That's one of my favorite misnames of the character.
The Juju Chewbacca rather than Jobu.
Juju Chewbacca. That's right. Yep. Juju Chewbacca. Yeah.
Exactly. I find her to be a fascinating, sympathetic character, even though she is the kind of horror element of this movie. Ultimately, the character that's just the daughter in the IRS universe she can't figure out what matters to her, and she's feeling alienated by people she's not supposed to be alienated by. And so Jobu ends up being this character that's, because mom in another universe kind of did experiments on her and broke her mind into parts, she's experienced all these universes all at once. And the hopelessness that we see in the IRS character is massive scale. Like, she's experienced everything at all places, and she can't find meaning in any of it.
All at once. Yes. Yeah.
And so she tries to put all of it together on a bagel, and we get this everything bagel, which I think is kind of just this fun. Again, it's all sort of metaphor. And
I'm just realizing, Mark, as you're talking, that this just sounds crazy. It does. If you haven't seen this, it sounds like a crazy thing.
It absolutely does. But the more you see it and the more you think about it, the more intricate and involved this storytelling really is. That bagel represents it's a dark bagel because it's everything, but it's meaningless. And she wants to go into it. Basically, it's suicide. It represents suicide. She wants to end everything. She wants to stop experience and everything because she feels like that's the only answer to the absurdity of what's going on. So for me, Jobu represents this realization of the absurdity of a lot of life. And the depression that can come along with it.
You know what's interesting about that, Mark, is that even as she's wanting to enter into the bagel, which is like this black hole that's going to suck her up and end her life, right? She doesn't want to do it alone. And so she's searching for her mother throughout the multiverse to go into the bagel alone. And so for me, I think that that was one of the points that that really I enjoyed about the movie was like
Yeah.
the focus on family and family
Yeah.
dynamics and how it is that you navigate strained relationships.
Mhm.
And I appreciated especially that mother-daughter relationship, and I think particularly of kind of Asian American, mother-daughter
Right.
relationships. And I think it did a good job of exploring what those are like, and also that longing to have someone who understands you. And that part of the movie, I really appreciated.
Right.
What,
Yeah, and I
and
think
I
that
think
that's.
yeah.
No,
I was just gonna
I
say,
just think
once
that.
you get past the weirdness, I think that
But I
that's
think the weird.
something.
I think the weirdness is so intentional. I really think it's
Yeah,
intentional. And I think how hectic it is, and
yeah,
how many times we see, because
yeah,
it's this commentary on our lives and how hectic our lives is, and
yeah,
how much stuff and how many things that are attractive that are out there that we could be doing and thinking about and
yeah,
learning and going to, and how we get caught up in this and trying to find meaning in all of this.
yeah,
And for me, that's sort of the brilliance of it. Like it's the film itself is representing the life it's trying to make a commentary on. And ultimately we have this one character who's given up. She's depressed. She's like, there is no meaning in any of this. It's all so completely
mm,
absurd.
mm,
And you get the mom character, Evelyn, who is desperate to make sense in any of it and working so hard to figure it out, but not finding it out. And everything is ruined because of all of this mess and everything. And then
yeah,
you get Waymond, who puts
yeah.
googly eyes on everything. And think about the visual of a googly eye next to the visual of a dark black everything bagel. It's the inverse. The circle's
Yeah.
white in a googly
White.
eye.
Ooh, you're a
And
deep, Mark.
so
Yeah,
so listen,
yeah,
he is the counterpoint to the absurdity of life. He, for me, is the core of what this movie ends up trying to be
mm,
about. It's making commentary on the absurdity of everything and how we expect to get meaning out of life, out of an absurd situations, which are very difficult to find meaning in. And we try to look for these giant big pictures and create the success stories and everything's big. And what really matters to Wayman, he has a couple of speeches, and he says,
yeah,
when I choose to see the good side of things, I'm not being naive.
yeah,
It's a strategic and necessary. It's how I've learned to survive through everything. I know you see yourself as a fighter. Well, I see myself as one too. This is just how I fight. And he's basically pulling everything back in. And we go back, when he says that, if you start thinking back across the movie, there's these moments where mom is frustrated and trying to run the business, and he's dealing with this upset customer by being in the moment with the customer. And instead of arguing and fighting, he turns it into a dance with the customer. He's just having fun. He's putting googly
yeah,
eyes on stuff. And for
yeah,
me, that's part of the what's going on here is it's about our big picture, the absurdity of life. It's this false thing that we feel like we have to understand and figure out. And what
mm,
really matters, and Wayman's the one that keeps pulling everybody back to it, is the moment and the relationships in the moment. Family relationships, yes. That's why I think what you're saying is like an offshoot of what this is about.
mm,
But it's just about all relationships. He was doing it with a customer. He was just saying this is what
yeah.
matters. And then in the last kind of big fight scene, as Joy is trying to go, or Jabu is going to try to get into the bagel to end everything,
Juju Chewbacca.
and,
Yeah,
and Juju Chewbacca, and Mom Evelyn's trying to save her.
yeah,
Wayman gives this big speech that basically says, "This is how I fight. This is how I resist." That's the purpose. We resist, but we resist in each moment with each relationship. We resist the absurdity by giving meaning to moments. And she
and
gets it. And she gets
and
it. And
she
you know what
saves. She
you know what
saves
she
the
does?
multiverse.
But you know what she does before she serves it? She puts her third eye on.
She
Her
puts her
googly
third eye
eye,
on.
which I say is a representation of recognizing how frivolous things really are, how we should be making more fun of the big things and really emphasizing the importance of each moment. She sort of sees that, and she puts the third eye on, and she moves from hurting people to creating relationships. There's a man and a woman who are having difficulties and are coming at her hard, and she pulls them together, and they have this kiss, and they all of a sudden they're
Right.
in their wedding gown, and another person's coming after her, and she turns his hand grenade into the perfume that his wife used to use, and
Right.
now he remembers that. She turns everything, she starts seeing it the way that Wayman does, that it's about the
Yeah.
moment, it's about the relationships, and that's what gives meaning to life.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant what they've done with this movie.
So I like your take on it, Mark, and I'm grateful that you have that take. I thought that in some ways that all the things going on all at once was a lot, and it was hard to decipher the message. And I think that a lot of folks who maybe didn't give it as much thought as you did may have had trouble sorting through the everything, the everywhere, the all at once. Even as I was sitting there, I'm like, I think I like the message of this movie. I'm not 100% sure, but I certainly like the ending. I like the part where she brings people together through kind of compassion and care, and I thought that's theological, and I like that.
Absolutely. And it's about community, and it's about being in relationship. And so at the end, she gets to her daughter, and she almost lets her daughter go. And we can get into telling you so much to unpack here with the rocks and rolling down the hill, and the mom rock following. But Evelyn says, of all the places I could be, why would I want to be here with you? She kind of just told your daughter how much you don't care about me and how you don't pay attention to me. You don't even give me a call, and that's free. And she says, so of all the places I could be, why would I want to be here with you? And then she said, but you still went looking for me through all of this noise. And she ultimately ends in, I still want to be here with you. I will always want to be here with you. For me, that's the progression of that character, of trying to make some meaning out of the situations and being audited and making everything work and giving dad her party and blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the movie, she comes to the realization that what matters is now. What matters is the moment, and what matters are these relationships. And that's what gives life meaning. And sometimes you have to kind of laugh at the absurdities of life and what we all try to make important. So with that, I'm going to stop running my mouth about this maybe being my favorite movie in a very long time. Definitely. And definitely in my top 10 already. And we'll take a quick break, and we'll come back and let you help us sort out how this is theological or even political after the drop.
Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine a light?
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show, where today we're talking about everything, everywhere, all at once. Mark has just told us that it is one of his favorite movies of all time. I said I was kind of meh about this movie. I had no idea what I made of it. I wanted to walk the middle ground on it. But here's the thing. I kind of felt like Everything, Everywhere, All at Once was Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, and agreed it was very intentional, but there was a lot to sort through. And so I think aside from the character development that we saw and some of the interesting things that we saw in terms of storyline and cinematography, that it addressed several social issues as well. And I'll just pick one of the everything, because there's a lot there that was all thrown into the movie.
This would be like a 6-hour podcast if we tried to cover all the metaphors.
One by one, let's analyze this movie. I know it was a 2-hour movie.
Could write their a sociologist could write their master's thesis on this show without any doubt.
That's right. So I'm going to pick one. I'm just going to pick one issue, and it's Pride Month, Mark, and
Yeah.
so
Yep.
this is what I want to talk about. So
Mm.
one of the things that we see right in front and center is Joy being a lesbian and
Mhm.
trying to struggle with coming out within her community, and
Mhm.
especially with coming out to her grandfather, who is Chinese and who has spent most of his life in China. And so I think we got a
Very
little bit of
traditional
insight
beliefs.
into very traditional
They
beliefs,
set they
right?
set that up early with mom worrying about, oh,
Hmm.
dad's about to wake up. I need to make sure I have breakfast for him. Kind of like
That's
that's
right.
his
Yeah, and
expectation.
there's a
It's
whole
very traditional.
commentary. That's right. A very
Mhm.
huge commentary on what kind of like immigrant life is like, and what growing up in a traditional culture is like. All of these things, and so we got a little bit of insight into sexuality, and particularly in a minority community, and how difficult
Mhm.
it can be to come out. So
Right.
here's my question. I know you've spent quite a bit of time here over the last few months studying queer theology, Mark. And so I
Yes,
want to
sir.
know, how do you think this show does in handling LGBTQ plus issues, and
Mm.
particularly the issue of coming out?
I think it's both good and bad ultimately.
Yeah.
I think that the stigmatism within a family that's a traditional family is
Hmm.
maybe understated, honestly. It's almost like it's just this annoying little frustration, and I'm sure that
Hmm.
happens, but I think it would have served the community a lot more if we would have seen a little bit more of an extreme view or situation, because that happens so frequently. A lot of the teens that are on the streets are
Hmm.
simply there
Yeah.
because they came out to their family. It can be a very
Right.
extreme thing. And
Yeah.
particularly within the larger story of what I think they were trying to do with this movie, of saying that being present in the moment with each person you're with and in relationship, and kind of eschewing all of the giant absurdities that life tries to put on us, including these false binaries of it's either this or it's that. So
Hmm.
you're either straight or you're not, and that's either good or it's bad. Um, I think there was a as much as they do, because they do
Yeah.
so much in this. I
Yes.
think it's a missed opportunity. I think it's a missed opportunity to make a larger comment on these false binaries and borders that we put up that create these either or. It makes it all about
Yeah.
relationship, which is very important because we don't tend to change our mind outside of a relationship. Someone can
Hmm.
argue you to death, but until you
Right.
have a relationship with someone who is what you are afraid of or
Mm.
don't like,
Mm.
you tend not to
Yeah.
change your mind. So I think they
Yeah.
could have done more with it. I am still glad that they addressed it. And at the end, it was sort of solved through relationship. In terms of queer theory, I wish there'd have been more set up about how grandfather came to this. What's his name? Go.
Gong gong.
Gong Gong. Yes, I was
Yeah.
forgetting the name. It's a language barrier for me that I should be better about. I thought they could have been a lot better about helping us understand how these kind of things come about. I don't
Yeah.
know that that was the point or purpose of the movie, but I
Yeah.
love that it was resolved with relationship ultimately.
I love your insight on that, Mark, because I think that, especially for churches, a lot of churches are still trained to think in binaries. And,
Yes,
churches tend to be, what, 2 decades at least behind where the rest of society is. And so
I would argue most of them are in the 50s right now.
okay, how about this? The ones that are doing
because it
better are
because
two.
it was the heydays. I mean, the 50s were the heydays, but I think you're right. The ones that
Yep.
are doing better are maybe 2 decades behind. Yeah.
And so I mean, I think that we see this in the conversation in the churches, that is still trying to think about how gender is not a binary, and how sexuality is
Mhm.
not a binary, and how it is that churches can really live into being places of authentic welcome, and doing more than just being places that say,
Mm.
well, we'll accept you, as long as you're not too vocal about it, as long as you don't make us too uncomfortable, that
Right.
we'll accept you as you are. But instead, being places that are training themselves to really be more fully welcome, to welcoming,
Mhm.
to really see really get behind the idea of a spectrum of sexualities and a spectrum of gender identities as well. So I like where you're going with that, Mark, and I think that's a real prophetic
to
word the
me,
church.
just to roll this back into the movie a little bit,
Yeah.
the movie talks about the absurdities of all of our big ideas and what we think are important. And well, here's the thing, and I think I'm not gonna hint too much here, but I might in my stuff make me look stupid segment, I might come back to something that you could play with.
Okay, I'm paying attention. I'm ready.
You can play with this a little bit.
Okay.
But what's absurd about it is in the Talmud, like our Jewish heritage of Christians, those rabbis identified at least over 8 different kinds of sexuality and sexual genders. And here we are more than almost sometimes 2,500 years later. And it's like we've forgotten this ancient knowledge that wasn't even challenged back then. It was just understood that this was a reality. And for me, what rolls back into how brilliant this movie is about talking about the absurdities of all these rules and laws and false binaries and everything that we make important that can be overwhelming. And when really all that's important is the moment and the relationship. And if we could just make those important, a lot of the issues that we deal with over again would go away, because what matters is the moment. What matters is the person I'm here and present with. I don't need to judge them. I just need to experience this with them.
And the place in the movie where that becomes most significant for me is a place that you mentioned earlier, Mark, and that's when they just become rocks, right? So the entire movie has been, it's been crazy, right? And then all of a sudden they enter a universe where they are just rocks, where the conditions for life weren't quite right to develop. And I love that in part because it's still all of a sudden, and you appreciate the stillness when there has been so much chaos, so much noise.
No cuts on the screen.
Nothing.
No
just no sound. It's just words.
Title.
Right. For the rocks talking. And so I think it's Joy who says, or Jobu, what's your last name? What's the name? Jobu. Yeah.
Chewbacca, right?
Chewbacca. No. That's, I latched onto that. Chewbacca. She says, just be a rock, right? Yeah. Just be a rock. Just be present in the moment. Be here. Small, stupid humans is kind of our whole deal. She says, and so it's a moment where you recognize, not only like in this, this kind of thought through multiverse thing, but in the universe that we know about, the known universe, how small we really are. And so I thought that was a significant moment in kind of placing us in the midst of all this chaos, how small our lives really are and the day-to-day struggles that we deal with. So, Mark, like you said, we could write maybe a whole thesis on this. And
no doubt.
We can't.
Maybe
a
couple of them. No, I don't have time for it.
Yeah, me neither. We've only got we've only got like 45 minutes today or something like that.
Right.
And so here's the thing. I think we should move to our next segment. And I want to hear how you're going to make me look stupid today, Mark. So how about after the drop? let's try to make each other look stupid.
I love it. Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We really, truly appreciate those of you who have stuck with us so far in this show. We are coming into a really fun segment that we like to call "Make Me Look Stupid."
Woo! Yeah.
And this is a segment in which Caleb and I endeavor to make the other person look stupid. And I have the great advantage of going first on this one. So I hinted at, I don't know if you remember when I hinted at this might help you with my question. You've already mentioned something.
Attention.
You've already mentioned something that might help you with my question even recently. So,
okay. Thanks for the hint, Mark. I'm ready.
I'm trying. I want you to look stupid.
I need all the help I can get.
I want you to have every opportunity to not look stupid. That's all.
Wait,
I'm saying.
Are you saying that I need all the help I can get with this? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just
Mark?
saying we both need all the help we can get. That's really what I'm saying.
All right. Okay,
I'm saying that's I'm trying to be generous. Like the movie seems to indicate that what's important is being in the moment in a relationship with the moment you're in and the person you're with. I'm trying to be generous in a way that you might return the favor later. So listen, here's the thing.
Okay.
So we've already said Daniels, the folks that directed the movie. I happen to have read a very quick little short clip from them before I watched the movies, and they said that the story of Sisyphus was an influence on this movie. Where do you see that?
Don't ask me about that.
Yes, victory is mine.
Continue. Yes.
I have to say that was on purpose, because honestly, if you had asked me that question, I'd have looked at you and I was like, you jerk.
Whoa, what?
Why would you dare ask me that question? But I honestly
wait. How do you spell it, Mark?
Let me Google this real fast.
Listen, Google it.
Listen.
Yeah.
No, here's the truth though. I respect you and your knowledge so much. I really sort of thought you might pivot to an answer. And I was like, he's going to impress the hell out of me if he goes.
Well, okay. Yeah. Okay. Tell me. Okay. Sisyphus.
So
whoever that is, tell me.
Sisyphus is the gentleman who is damned in the afterlife to roll the stone up the hill. And every time he gets to the top of the hill, the stone then rolls back down, and he has to go back to the bottom and roll it up again. So the rock sort of represents mankind's absurd dilemma, which is ultimately sort of the idea there is that it's impossible to resolve. It's that this meaning, this purpose, like you never can really ultimately resolve your meaning or purpose. And so each time he gets to the top, it rolls back down. So for me, whether man comes close to realizing the meaning of life or not, it every time he thinks he has, when he's got the rock to the top, he realizes that he's mistaken. And in this movie, that's kind of the big picture, the absurdity of it all. Once Jobu knows everything, Jobu recognizes it's all absurd and it's all ridiculous, and chooses what I would say incorrect path of just trying to escape it. And so this, for me, is the Daniels answer to Sisyphus and the rock problem and the absurdity of life, is that it's not about the big thing. It's not about rolling the rock up the hill. It's about being engaged with the people in the moments, and that we have to learn to ignore the rock, which I think comes back to you pointing out these rocks that are sitting on this hill. Right?
Oh,
they're sitting on this
course,
hill.
Yeah. That was my answer. I knew.
Of course, I knew it was. I was just filling in the gaps for you. That's all.
I know, right? All. Like I'm just gonna let you keep talking until you continue giving me my wonderful answer. Keep going, better. Mark. I like this. Yeah.
It's even better that the rock that represents Jobu or joy gives up, and you get this rock, like Sisyphus' rock, rolling down the hill. And then the mom rock, Evelyn, instead of staying at the top, which was Sisyphus's goal to keep the rock at the top and understand the meaning of life,
goes down,
recognizes that the meaning is there with my daughter in that relationship and rolls down. So there's my take on why that's my take on why I think they say that Sisyphus that was a strong influence on this movie.
Okay, I love I love it. So I think a lot of us spend our whole lives struggling with these big questions, these wonderful questions, and at the end of the day, right? I think one of the things that we believe in progressive, you have your eyes up,
They're
Mark.
talking. They're, they're,
They're
they're agreeing with you. They're agreeing with you.
Oh, thank you. That a lot of times we spend this whole time asking these big questions and hoping for an answer. And right, life is about. I think life certainly is about relationships and all of that as well. But I think life is also about asking the big questions and being willing to set in the ambiguity of the answers. And so I don't think a
Yeah.
rock ever gets to the top of the hill. We don't ever know. And I think that's one of the
Yeah.
some people like a lot of Christians see that as problematic. Like if you don't know,
Hmm.
like a lot of Christians
That's a
want
great
want
point.
answers. They
Yeah.
want to
E-
know things.
e-
And in
yeah.
fact, if you come to that church and you're not willing to accept their version of the answers or whatever,
Right.
that's a problem. That's like a source of exclusion. But I think the joy is in asking the
Mm,
questions and setting the ambiguity of the answers, because as
absolutely.
we learn that the world is broader, that the universe is broader than we've ever imagined, that
Hmm.
that can be a wonderful thing, a wonderful as you see, it's like the third eye coming on your head, Mark. you know. Okay,
I
okay.
cannot.
There's me stumbling through my answers. I think you've
No,
already made me look
I think
stupid,
that's
Mark.
I
So
think that's a brilliant
thank
conclusion
you.
to
It
your
is.
answer.
It's
I really
beautiful.
do.
It's beautiful.
It
Thank
is.
you.
It absolutely is.
So together we got through that. We got through
We
that
were able to
answer.
figure that thing out.
Thanks. Okay, I'm gonna give you a soft. I'm gonna give you a soft.
Oh
Softer
man, I don't feel
type of thing.
guilty. And I don't feel that guilty. I helped you with
That was my plan. That's what I
Uh,
thought. As
I
you were
don't.
sitting there
I don't.
asking me this question, here I'm gonna lob you one, Mark. So okay. So here's one. It's also from my favorite
I'm
scene where they're
activating my
sitting there
third
as
eye.
rock.
By
Activate
wiggling my
it.
head
There
back.
it is.
Mhm.
It's
Yep.
going around. Okay, here we go. Okay, so in that scene where they are rocks and there's
Mhm.
just words on the screen, right? The titles.
Right.
One of them says, "Nobody gets along with their neighbor anymore. We need to get things back to where they're supposed to be." Here's my question, Mark. Was there ever a back to where they're supposed to be? Like, was there ever that time? Whenever, maybe it's the 1950s,
No. Yeah.
like the church, right? We were
Mhm.
talking about that earlier, where that was the heyday of the church. Maybe
Well,
that's the time. Is that it?
well, I mean, one of the things that this movie is intentionally is a commentary on the internet. It is. I mean, they've said as much. This is a commentary on the internet and how much distractions and all of that kind of stuff we have. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think in simpler times, as the old folks say, I think it's.
Back in the
I'm
day.
trying to deflect
Back
that.
in my day.
I'm trying to deflect that, even though all my gray hair is kind of like denying me to be able to say that. But uh, when we had less distracting us, yes, relationships were necessarily more important. However, we were equally removed from, or at least we had so many hurdles between us and new information that we were very likely to be stuck in these meta ideas, these giant stories, these false
Mm,
binaries. We were
mm,
much likely,
mhm.
more likely to be stuck in them because we were less likely to be exposed to facts that are different from them or point us in new directions. So no, I don't necessarily completely agree. I think it's a beautiful kind of idealistic oversimplification where, yeah, thinking about how when it used to be importantly, you'd like what you would spend your evening in your backyard speaking over the fence to your neighbor. Yeah, that's kind of like that's nice, great. But I really feel like the movie's bigger than that. I think the movie's really saying that even within all of this access to information we have, it'd be easy to become overwhelmed with it and feel like everything's absurd and hopeless. but that what we got to do is come back and focus on real relationships that take into account all that we know. So yeah, in a lot of ways, I just think that it's another one of those kind of like beautiful false ideas that movies frequently bring to us. It's trying to push its own point of relationships matter, but it's doing it by critiquing a thing that can actually create healthier relationships. Knowledge definitely can help create better relationships, and it's critiquing all this access to knowledge and say, oh, if we didn't have all this stuff around us all the time, then we could all be really a lot better in relationship. And I don't know that's completely true.
Yeah, I agree. Thank God, churches don't promote false notions like that or anything, or that we don't do that as a society. So I like that answer, Mark. I think that's good. And I think maybe this is a good spot with that wonderful answer for us to let the viewers know what we're going to be talking about next week on the Moonshine Jesus Show.
I am so excited about it. Next week, all of you tune in. There should be, I think, 2 or 3 shows by that point. We're going to be talking about Miss Marvel. It is about this superhero fan, Kamala, with this giant imagination, Muslim family. She loves Captain Marvel, and but she feels like she doesn't fit in like at school, like a lot of us have felt in those times. She sometimes even feels like she doesn't fit at home, that she's the outsider at home. Yeah, and all of that changes when she gets the superpowers, like all of the heroes that she's looked up to. So, and it is fun. I've watched the first episode. The graphics are incredible. They do some fun kind of, because she's a teenager, and so they do stuff that really feels like it fits with her personality. I'm excited about this, Caleb. I'm really excited.
And the first Muslim superhero, right?
It's amazing. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that ought to be a lot.
The
of
comic
fun.
book was the first one, and this is the first one that we've had in film as well. So, and honestly, I can tell you from the first show, the actress that plays Miss Marvel, incredible. You will be enamored with her almost immediately. She has this personality that pops off the screen. It's incredible. It's incredible.
I can't wait.
Me too. So anyway, we want to thank you all for joining us today and ask you, please join us the next time on the Moonshine
Jesus
Show.